Cool. Great. Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Excellent. We're going to talk about driveways, obviously, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about what it was like post Spa Night and the success that the film had, and the did you feel pressure after that?
Um, I was really eager to make another feature. I really loved the experience of making Spa Night and the way that it, uh, introduced me to the film industry. It was such a special experience. I wanted to do it again as quickly as possible. I also knew that I was really kind of tapped creatively. I didn't feel like I had another story that I wanted to tell with the same sort of immediacy that I did with Spa Night, and so I went looking for screenplays, looking for other people's writing that I could then direct. And this was how Hannah and Paul's script for Driveways came my way. I had met with our producer Joe Piro, and he felt that I would be really into the screenplay, and I read it, and he was totally right.
The path and the newfound love for driveways, because we're almost at 2 years now that since its debut.
I know.
But it's on Showtime, and critics groups are giving the movie some love. How does that feel after this much time has passed?
Um, I think for many, independent films, it this is not an uncommon length of time. It takes a little bit of time for these films to gain momentum, and it's not like we have giant marketing budgets that launch us right into public consciousness immediately. And so it's kind of it's very satisfying that that I think the recent wave of people discovering driveways has been kind of built upon just word of mouth. That to me is super cool. So it's like I never had any huge expectation for the film. For me, I was just gratified to make it, and to make it with the cast and crew that we had. So the fact that it's getting this attention is all just such a special bonus.
Yeah, and as a sidebar, I absolutely love the film. I had to, I had to pause it when I watched it, and I made a comment. I said, "Oh, okay, so I'm crying in the first 5 minutes of Driveways. Okay, cool, here we go." And it's yeah, and that just kind of followed through because it's such a beautiful story. And you
Oh,
mentioned
thanks.
the screenplay earlier. I know it was moved, the location was moved. Was there anything else that was changed or adapted once you got your hands on it?
Yeah. So when I first read the script, the roles of Kathy and Cody, their ethnicity wasn't defined. But I think, and this sounds maybe a little reductive, but because I'm Asian American, I just imagined them as Asian American, and so um, I, uh, I really saw that as an opportunity to work with really amazing Asian American talent like Hong Chau. I had pitched that to James Seamus and Joe Piro and our producers, and I was afraid that they'd say, "Oh, like this isn't right for this film." But it was actually, it was met with like really, like a wonderful response. They were really excited by that possibility of casting Asian American actors for Kathy and Cody. For me, it felt really appropriate to the story because Kathy and Cody feel like outsiders in this town, and so to externalize that feeling in their ethnicity felt really organic to the story. And so we actually didn't do much in terms of changing the screenplay in order to make that adjustment. I think it was just a few things, names here and there. And so it just really felt appropriate. And so for me as an Asian American filmmaker to work with Asian American talent to tell more Asian American stories, it just felt like such a great opportunity and fit.
Yeah, and there is that little moment with the neighbor played by Christine Neversole that is that, I guess, unintentional microaggression, which does do that. I thought Hudson Valley was such a great location choice for this because it's really beautiful, but it feels extremely remote, which I imagine for them was a perfect metaphor for what they were going through at the time.
Yeah, so for various reasons, the Hudson Valley made sense creatively, practically, for the film. What I really responded to was that it felt like it felt like a town that definitely has a history and a feeling that it's a smaller kind of insular kind of place, but at the same time, has this influx of, younger people, people of color, that would give you a sense of hope, and feeling like there's a life for Kathy and Cody in this town that will be not just full of Lindas. And so I was really excited to shoot there, and it really worked out that we could really access a lot of talent from New York City, and then it also just was a kind of fun coincidence that we shot mostly in Poughkeepsie, which is where our writers Hannah and Paul had actually first met as students at Vassar.
That's wild that they wrote it for the Midwest, but here we are back in Poughkeepsie. That's really cool.
I know. Actually, the roller rink where Cody has his sad birthday party was a roller rink that Hannah and Paul had skated at before, like when they were in school, and so it was really funny that those coincidences made it feel right.
I love that. I remember lots of roller rink parties when I was younger, so that was such a neat thing to see. I loved that. I really want to talk about the casting. We've already mentioned Hong Chau and Brian Dennehy. How did they board this? It's I can't think of anybody else that I'd want to see in these roles now after seeing this.
I agree. I think Hong and Brian brought these characters to life in such a human way. With Hong, I had seen her in Treme and thought she was just so good in that, and then she was getting all this attention because of downsizing,
Yes.
and I just I really believe that she could play this mother, and this mother, it's a hard role because you're kind of writing this like edge of tender but also frustrated, and I think that that's what I see Hong do so well in everything that she does, is she just finds that perfect balance and brings that humanity. With Brian, he was our one and only. I read the script and just knew that he was perfect for this because Dell has this very imposing facade, but underneath that is so vulnerable. And at the end of this film, just exposes his guts, his emotions. And for me, that's a really hard thing to do, to have that kind of dichotomy, that range. And Brian Dennehy does that effortlessly. When I talked to him about it, I was really nervous because obviously I've seen his work for years, and he is kind of, again, like, he's an imposing persona, but he was just so lovely and so excited about the movie. He loved the writing, and he brought this real sense of generosity to the process that I think just shows like how much of a professional he was and how much he loved acting, how much he loved the craft. Um, I was a little bit nervous because at this point we had already decided that Kathy and Cody would be Asian American, and I was hoping that Brian would be into that, and he loved the idea, and he thought that it was so great that people were making films with people of color. I think that to me just really made me feel at ease that he fully understood the vision of the film and was excited to do it.
Yeah, and I mean he is sublime and such a wonderful creation because it subverts what you think you're going to see, this grizzled old man, and it's like, oh, okay, is he going to be like really racist, and then he has to find the heart of gold, and it's none of that. And it's one of the things that is just so successful about the film. Tell me about finding Lucas Jaye. Um, there is, I'm a member of the LGBTQ Entertainment Critics, and we've been talking about the movie a lot and about him. And there's a lot of queer coding that I think we were able to see from it, of this sensitive kid. And I just would love to hear about casting Lucas and how he saw his character.
Yeah. So we knew that we had a challenge, in casting Cody. He's very much the heart of the film. The perspective from which the audience views these experiences. And so, we knew that we had a challenge. We worked with one of the best casting directors in the business, Avi Kaufman,
Yes.
and she sent me the tape for Lucas. He had shot his audition at home, and I watched it, and I just thought he was so he was just like so mature. He had this old soul quality, but still had this youthfulness that made you want to protect him, take care of him, And so I just could immediately tell that there was something really special about Lucas. We had the opportunity to bring him in for a callback. We did a chemistry read between him and Hong, and I just really loved this sense of him being like a little man, and for me, the kind of subtle like queerness of the film and of the character, that was something that I really I wanted to layer in. I think there's so much kind of identity exploration that Cody is doing throughout the film, and kind of how he's expressing himself through the necklace and the bracelets and the manga. These were all little details that felt like my childhood as like a nascent gay kid. I wanted to like stop short of like explicitly saying like he's a gay character, just because for me, I think so much of my kind of growing up queer, I wasn't totally sure what to call it or how to describe it. And I wanted to give Cody this gift of self-determination, that if Cody grows up to be queer, then great, but it's not for us to know or decide for the character. And that just felt like the most kind of responsible thing to do. What I loved about working with Lucas was that he just was having so much fun on set. You know, he really loved like being there. He, you know, is excited about, you know, acting. And I think it was so great that the friendship between Cody and Dell was really authentic. Brian and Lucas got along so well. Like they just had so much fun together. Between takes, Brian would help Lucas with the British accent just for fun, you know. And and that was just such a gift because if that friendship rang true, you know, I knew that the film was going to work.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to Brian Dennehy that he really respected his young co-star. I think there are a lot of older actors that might just be like, okay, whatever. But Brian really loved working with Lucas and was inspired by him. You know, that one scene toward the end of the film where Dell tells Cody that he has to move to Seattle at the end of the summer. You know, we shot Brian's close-ups first, and then we shot Lucas's. And after that, we were done with the scene, and Brian came up to me and he said, "Hey, like Lucas was so good. Like he was trying different things. I'm really inspired. I have some ideas. I'd love to try them again." And so the fact that he like didn't want to just like go back to his trailer, like sit in an air conditioned room, you know, that he wanted to stay on set and do the work, but because he was so inspired by his young co-star, that to me, you know, was just so, it just showed like how good Brian was at this, you know, how much he cared about it, how passionate he was about it. Um, and, and so for me, like, I think about, you know, just that motivation. Like I hope that when I'm Brian's age that I am that motivated to continue doing the work and to do my best every day and not just phone it in.
I mean, that's about as ego-free as I think you can imagine too. Just to always be willing to learn
Yeah,
something. That's what a wonderful anecdote.
it's so cool. It's really cool. And I think like Brian, he felt so kind of protective, I think, of Lucas's experience. This was Lucas's first movie and it was one of Brian's, you know, last. I think he really wanted to make sure that Lucas had, you know, a great experience so that Lucas would want to do this again. That generosity, I think, is just so special and so rare. You know, I think it's very easy, I think, for all of us to just be selfish, take care of what we need to take care of, you know, and let others, you know, do whatever they need to do. But I think Brian could tell with a film like this that's so gentle, that has so much to say about, you know, generosity and kindness, that he had to imbue that not just in the character but in his being. And so I think that was something that I think not just Brian, but our entire cast and crew, you know, understood and practiced.
And I think it reads through in every frame. It's that it's completely honest. There's no pretending there, and it's one of the great successes of the film.
Yeah, there are no like car chases or fight scenes to like hide anything. It's like we just had to be honest, like we just had to do that, you know. So it's a tough challenge, you know. I think that there's a lot of like cool filmmaking that's happening right now, and I love watching those films. But I think that the sign of a really great, you know, like film production, like film team, cast and crew, is when you have nothing to hide behind except for emotional honesty. And can you get that right? And that was the big challenge for us with Driveways.
Absolutely. Andrew, thank you so much for talking with me today. I hope everybody, if you have Showtime, it's on Showtime right now. You can also VOD it. Please watch the movie. And Andrew, thank you so much.
Yeah, I enjoyed speaking with you. Thanks so much.
All right, have a great day.
Yeah, you too.